An unusual and potentially transformative situation is unfolding across Canada, casting a shadow of uncertainty over the recently concluded federal election. What was initially perceived as a definitive outcome is now being rigorously as numerous recounts are underway, prompting questions about the integrity of the democratic process itself. In a significant number of key ridings spanning the vast Canadian landscape, the initial victory margins, once considered secure, are proving to be remarkably narrow. Reports indicate that in several instances, the difference between winning and losing candidates amounts to a mere handful of votes, a dozen in one riding, 15 in another, with some tallies being separated by single-digit figures. These minuscule margins, seemingly insignificant on their own, hold the power to flip the outcome in individual ridings and consequently alter the overall balance of power within the Canadian Parliament. While recounts are an established procedure in democratic systems, serving as a crucial mechanism for ensuring electoral accuracy, the current wave of recounts is generating considerable attention due to both its scale and the high stakes involved. As the recounted ballots are tallied, the projected composition of Parliament is undergoing a shift. The governing party, which had harbored hopes of securing a majority, now finds its seat count precariously balanced, subject to the outcome of each individual recount. This situation transcends a mere procedural formality. It represents a critical juncture for Canadian democracy. Adding to the significance of these events is the growing realization among Canadians regarding the exceedingly tight margins in many ridings. Constituencies that were confidently declared on election night, marked by celebratory gatherings and victory speeches, are now under intense scrutiny. What was once accepted as a clear win is now being subjected to a meticulous revaluation, raising fundamental questions about the accuracy of the initial counts. At the heart of this unfolding scenario lie crucial civic questions that demand careful consideration. Can Canadians maintain confidence in the electoral process? Are they assured that every vote was accurately counted? Do the final results, regardless of their narrowness, genuinely reflect the will of the Canadian electorate? These inquiries are not rooted in partisan affiliations, but are fundamental to the health and legitimacy of a democratic society. In a political landscape where a single seat can determine whether a government achieves a majority or remains in a minority position, the precision of each individual vote becomes paramount. A single misplaced ballot, a single tabulation error, can potentially alter the course of legislation, influence national leadership, and reshape public policy. However, as these recounts proceed, an unexpected phenomenon has emerged: a relative silence on the national stage. The extensive media coverage and widespread public discourse one might anticipate in such a situation have been notably muted. This lack of prominent headlines, in-depth investigative reporting, and public forums dedicated to discussing the integrity of the electoral process raises concerns. A pertinent question arises: if the political landscape were reversed and recounts threatened to unseat a different political party, would the national response be the same? Would the sense of urgency remain equally subdued? The scrutiny extends beyond political leaders to the very institutions tasked with safeguarding the fairness of the electoral process. Elections Canada, the independent body responsible for overseeing the recounts, plays a pivotal role in upholding democratic principles. However, the sheer volume and close margins of this year's recounts have prompted many to question whether a broader re-examination of ridings is warranted and whether the threshold for automatic recounts should be lowered, particularly in an era characterized by such tight electoral races. It is crucial to acknowledge the human element within this process. For Canadian voters who dedicated their time to cast their ballots, believing that their voice would be accurately recorded and contribute to the democratic outcome, the prospect that their vote may have been miscounted or that errors could sway national results is deeply unsettling. Such uncertainty erodes public confidence, a cornerstone of any thriving democracy. Perhaps more concerning than the recounts themselves is the observed political response. Instead of a unified acknowledgement that complete transparency serves the interests of all political parties and all Canadians, there appears to be a degree of defensiveness, a noticeable silence, and a reluctance to fully embrace what should be viewed as a healthy and necessary process of verification and potential correction. Moments like these serve as a true test of leadership, extending beyond the ability to secure votes to encompass the capacity to earn and maintain public trust. Canadians do not expect absolute perfection, but they do demand honesty and accountability. If discrepancies are identified during the recounts, they should be openly acknowledged. If victory margins are questionable, they should be addressed through thorough recounts, not through political maneuvering or spin. This is particularly relevant, considering the context in which the recent election was conducted. The current government was not elected with an overwhelming majority. Its level of support was relatively narrow, and in many regions, its success was attributed to strategic considerations and voter fatigue rather than widespread enthusiasm. This is not intended as a criticism, but rather as an objective observation of the parliamentary landscape. However, when this reality intersects with shifting electoral results, the issue of legitimacy becomes paramount. Legitimacy is not a commodity that can be manufactured through carefully crafted messaging or public relations efforts. It is earned through concrete actions, through unwavering transparency, through demonstrable accountability, and through a willingness to revisit electoral outcomes when legitimate questions arise. A recount should never be perceived as an attack on democracy. Rather, it is an integral part of the democratic process in action. Yet, the current situation reveals that several ridings are undergoing formal recounts, while others with similarly narrow margins are not, simply because they fell slightly outside the established legal threshold. This begs the fundamental question: when the difference in votes is so minimal, should the existing rules be re-evaluated to ensure that fairness and accuracy are not inadvertently sacrificed for the sake of procedural formality? True leadership necessitates confronting these challenging questions directly. It requires leaders to stand before Canadians and acknowledge the close nature of the election, emphasizing that this closeness underscores the critical importance of taking every possible step to guarantee the accuracy of the results. Anything less risks fostering doubt, and unchecked doubt can lead to public disengagement, a detrimental outcome for any democratic society. The introduction of Mark Carney as a prominent figure within the Liberal Party was intended to project an image of stability and competence, a leader capable of restoring public trust. The current situation presents a significant test of that promise. It offers an opportunity for political leaders to transcend partisan considerations and unequivocally affirm that recounts are not a threat to democracy, but a necessary safeguard. When electoral outcomes are so closely contested, Canadians are closely observing not only the final seat counts, but also how their democratic institutions respond under pressure. Will transparency prevail? Will accountability be upheld? Will there be an unwavering commitment to truth, even when it presents political challenges? The fundamental truth is that these recounts are not solely about which political party ultimately controls a particular riding. They are fundamentally about reinforcing public trust in the democratic process. When electoral outcomes in numerous ridings hinge on a mere handful of ballots, it transcends the realm of assumption and enters the domain of requiring concrete proof of accuracy. The recent election has illuminated a crucial aspect of Canadian society. Its citizens are engaged. They are paying close attention to political developments. They care deeply about electoral results, and they are invested in the integrity of the process that produces those results. This level of civic engagement is not a weakness of the democratic system, it is its greatest strength. However, this strength must be nurtured and supported by a clear and unwavering commitment from all political leaders to uphold the standards that lend credibility to Canadian democracy. This includes conducting recounts whenever appropriate, openly acknowledging any flaws or errors that may emerge, and treating every single ballot cast with the respect and diligence it deserves. Therefore, the collective expectation of Canadians is clarity, not obfuscation, transparency, not carefully crafted talking points, principled leadership, not strategic silence, and above all, a process that honors the trust placed in it by the electorate. Ultimately, this is not about political victories or defeats. It is about ensuring that the final outcome, whatever it may be, genuinely reflects the will of the Canadian people, not just in theory but in demonstrable practice. If achieving this requires time, necessitates thorough recounts, and involves a degree of political discomfort, then so be it. This is the inherent cost of a robust democracy, and it is a prick.